Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
Thank you for joining me for another edition of the Bob Sullivan Show here on latenightsportsradio.com. Tonight I am joined by former NBA player and Washington alum, Eldridge Recasner. Eldridge, how you doing tonight?
Good, Bob. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Well, Eldridge, you played for the Hawks, played for the Hornets. During your NBA career, you got to play against Jordan, you got to play against Kobe. The big question that you are often asked, granted you played against Kobe early in his career, what are the two biggest similarities and two biggest differences you noticed during their careers when you played against them as a shooting guard?
Well, obviously, I think that the biggest similarities were they were the two best offensive players and perhaps the two best defensive players of their era. Kobe Bryant, though he won't admit it, from everything that I see, he tried to pattern his game and everything else that he did on the court behind Michael Jordan, and he did a pretty good job. The biggest difference that I see is I think people respected Kobe's game, but I'm not sure how well he was liked. Even from my time when I played against him when I was in the league. And I know everybody respected Jordan, but most guys liked Jordan also. So that's the biggest difference that I see. This was a difference in personality and how they were perceived not only by other NBA players but by fans.
You also played against Kevin Garnett, and I feel like his early on in his career, was he as big a trash talker as, it was shown he was in Boston? Like Boston, I guess the media kind of caught wind of, how big of a trash talker he was, how much of a tough guy he was. Was he like that early on in his career, or was he kind of quiet early on?
Oh, he was like that from the very beginning. I remember playing him his rookie year with Minnesota. It was him and Stephon Marbury. They were both big-time trash talkers, but, they both backed it up. They played really hard. I think Kevin Garnett is probably one of the most emotional guys probably in the history of the NBA, and he's definitely one of the hardest working, but he was like that from day one.
Looking at, the NBA now versus the NBA of the late 90s, early 2000s, do you feel like the trash talking has become less now than it was back then? Because of, everybody's played together, everybody's kind of friendly with each other for the most part in the NBA. Not everybody's wanting to kind of go for the throat, so to speak. Do you see it as, the NBA's gotten softer trash talking, or do you think it's just as good as it's ever been?
You know what? I'm not in the league, so I can't really say. All I can do is comment a lot like everybody else as a spectator. But I don't think the trash talking has backed off. I mean, you look at DeMarcus Cousins, you look at DeAndre Jordan just last night going back to Dallas. I think the guys still talk trash. I mean, this is still a competitive sport, but by no means is it as competitive and as physical as it used to be. I mean, back in the day, you paid a price in the 80s and even in the 90s. You paid a price when you came in the lane and dunked on somebody. Now somebody had dunked on the guy and the other team's player might give you a high five. So things have really changed in that aspect. But as far as the trash talking goes, I think guys pretty much still talk trash and still accept the challenges. I mean, you see James Harden out there, he's stirring up, he's cooking, he's talking smack the whole time. Russell Westbrook got to look like, he's playing like he played for Greg Marshall at Wichita State. He's playing angry all the time. So I think the trash talk is still there.
Are you surprised more people don't, get into scrapes with Russell Westbrook? I know a lot of his, antics are when he does something right or wrong, but that seems like something that would rub another player the wrong way on the other team. Are you surprised he doesn't get into more, another point guard doesn't, go after him or something like that? He seems like the personality that would annoy an opponent on the court.
Well, I think he probably does annoy your opponent on the court, but I think they're scared of him. So that's probably why he doesn't get into it with anybody. I mean, the guy, flat out is MVP candidate, and I thought last year he deserved MVP, even though Stephen Curry played great. I thought Steph had a lot more help around him. what Russell Westbrook did, almost averaging a triple-double for the entire month of March and the last few games in April was amazing. And he's picked up this year where he did last year. There's certain guys you play against, you don't worry about them the night before you play them. But I guarantee you guys are losing sleep the night before they play against Oklahoma City and Russell Westbrook.
One thing that is cool about the NBA, other than like Lakers Celtics, even though that goes dormant for time to time, rivalries, come and go. There's always like a 5-year span for rivalries, whether it be Lakers Kings, Heat Celtics. What do you think the best rivalry in the NBA is right now?
The best rivalry in the NBA right now? Wow, that's a tough one. I wanted to believe that Golden State and the Clippers would be a big rivalry this year, but Golden State just seems to be handling everybody. I wanted to believe the same thing with Oklahoma City and Golden State, but I really don't see a rivalry like we saw between the Lakers and the Celtics, or the Bulls and the Pistons, or Philadelphia, and the Celtics back when Dr. J and Larry Bird played. I don't see a rivalry like that in today's game, but I'm hoping one develops. I think if Oklahoma City can stay healthy, I think that's going to be a great rivalry between Oklahoma City and Golden State. And if the Clippers could somehow get their thing together, I'm a fan of the Clippers. I want to cheer for them, but they always seem to disappoint you come to big games. And Golden State, I can't say enough about them. They really surprised me because I didn't think that they could dismantle Memphis the way they have twice already this year, because I thought Memphis was a really tough and physical team. But you just don't see the rivalries like you did back in the olden days. I'm not sure why.
A lot of the theory is, free agency and all that. I don't necessarily buy that. I just feel like, well, in the East, it's, LeBron versus everybody, but there's, not really if Miami could put it together this year, next couple of years, maybe that could be a rivalry because there's a lot of veterans on those two teams, but I don't see that really butting into much over the next couple of years. The Bulls, I think without Thibodeau, I don't think that can be a rivalry with the Cavs. I like Hoiberg, but they don't have that mean streak to them this year that they had under Thibodeau. So, yeah, it's pretty much everybody versus LeBron in the East. And in the West, there's always interesting rivalries, whether it be, I think the Clippers, Warriors is probably the best right now, just from the simple how they use the media against each other, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned free agency, and I think that has a lot to do with it. Back in the day, guys didn't move around. If you were a Celtic, you were a Celtic. If you were a Laker, you were a Laker. Even in my worst nightmare, I can't imagine Magic leaving the Lakers and going and playing for the Celtics. And I sure the hell couldn't imagine Bird leaving Boston, going and playing in L.A. But, free agency is just what the word says now. Guys are free to move around, and they are. So I think that's probably the biggest reason why you don't see the rivalries. An example was last night. The Portland Trailblazers played the San Antonio Spurs, but, now LaMarcus Aldridge is on San Antonio's side instead of Portland. That wouldn't have happened in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Guys kind of stayed where they were. Clyde at the very end of his career left and went to Houston and won a championship with Hakeem, but for the most part, he made it to the finals that he led the Portland Trailblazers to. So I think that's probably a reason, free agency and guys moving around.
Do you, the DeAndre Jordan hoopla in the off season, and then last night, Dallas gave him a little bit of treatment, but they were pretty civilized about it. They just booed him when he got the ball and everything, and it was kind of a weak boo at the beginning of the game. But do you think DeAndre Jordan made the right decision in going back to LA?
I like the decision. I was disappointed when I heard he was leaving because I thought the Clippers they were right there, and without him, they don't have a chance at all. He's a very dominant defensive player. Obviously he catches a lot of lobs. He can't shoot free throws, and I don't think he's the most mentally tough guy out there at the center position. But just what he brings to the table physically and as an athlete, you can't find that in today's NBA. So I was kind of happy that he came back. But I think the whole move to Dallas kind of started because he didn't feel like he was appreciated. I watched a lot of their games last year because Steve Ballmer's the owner. And I know Steve, so I was pulling for the Clippers. Jamal Crawford's on the team. He's a guy that's from Seattle. Last year they had Spencer Hawes. He was on the team from Seattle, and C.J. Wilcox. So, I watched a lot of Clippers games, and I was pulling for him. But I just don't think DeAndre felt the appreciation and the love, and when they found out that he was going to vote, they put on the full court press and said, hey, wait a minute, we really need you. And I think once he felt like he was appreciated and got the $80 million, I think it was a done deal. For me, it was the right decision. I would rather see him with the Clippers, a team that you're familiar with, the way they play. I mean, he's not going to find a better point guard to set him up than Chris Paul. So I think he made the right decision.
Last night we got to see Chris Paul versus Darren Williams. It's right now it's kind of crazy to think that at one point that was, who was better, Chris Paul or Darren Williams. And Williams' career was kind of derailed by ankle injuries. I mean, he's still a good player, but, at their peaks, back in like 07, 08, 09, who did you think was better?
Oh, it's never been a consideration who was better in my opinion. I think Chris Paul has always been one of the elite guards. I made a comment on Twitter last night about Darren Williams, and you gotta state the facts. He hasn't really had a good year since he played for Jerry Sloan. I mean, he played for Jerry Sloan in Utah in that system, which made John Stockton, a great player, and it was making Darren Williams a great player. And then he left there and went to New Jersey, and you don't even hear his name. I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't even know he was still in the league. That's how far he's fallen off. Where Chris Paul has been at an elite level, every single year. I mean, Chris Paul, I love Chris Paul's game. I don't think he's the best point guard in the league now, because I think that title probably goes to Steph Curry and Russell Westbrook, but he's still right up there in the top five, without a doubt. But Darren Williams isn't even in the conversation, so that goes to show you what's happened to his career over the last few years.
With the Clippers, I mean, looking at the free throw shooting of DeAndre Jordan, in the play, obviously we all knew the issues, but in the playoffs, it got annoying with, him, Dwight Howard, Josh Smith, Joey Dorsey at times shooting all these, Clint Capella shooting all these free throws. Looking at, these bad free throw shooters, do you think it's, like Dwight at times looks like he has a good stroke, and then he throws that hitch in there once in a while. DeAndre Jordan, his shot doesn't look bad. It just doesn't go in, or he airballs it. What do you think it's all mental with these guys? What do you think it is, as far as these horrible free throw shooters in the NBA?
I think a lot of it is mental, but I think when you talk about the big guys, the DeAndre Jordans, the Dwight Howards, the Shaquille O'Neals, I mean, their hands are so big, and to shoot that little, it'd be like us shooting a volleyball, trying to make a basket. I mean, I think that part's tough for them. And then the other part, to be quite honest about it, I just don't think guys practice it. Free throws aren't sexy. The dunk is sexy. It gets the crowd going. A crossover dribble, a three gets the crowd excited. But nobody really puts the time in to learn how to be a good free throw shooter. And it's a learned skill. I mean, it's the only shot you shoot in basketball where you're not going to be defended, and it's 15 feet, and guys making $10, $15 million a year can't make it. I mean, it blows my mind. But I have to say that I know having those huge hands plays a role. But also, you got to put the time in. I mean, how many guys, in there working on their post game and working on their 3-point shot, versus how many guys are actually in the gym shooting 300, 400, 500 free throws a day. And I think that has a lot to do with it. But mentally, once you realize, you're struggling at the line and teams start fouling you, it's embarrassing because, there's 20,000 people in most of these arenas, and you get up there and you can't make a free throw. That's the last place you want to be in a game. It's like you facing the boogeyman. And, I mean, as great as Shaq was, he didn't want to go to the free throw line either. And DeAndre Jordan and Dwight Howard are pretty much the new Shaquille O'Neal.
I think DeAndre is shooting like 35 or 36% from the free throw line this year, and I think he has. The Clippers have missed, I think, 61 free throws all year, and he's missed like 34.
Wow.
And the rest of the team is 60. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And that Rockets-Clippers series at times was almost unwatchable because you had, of the 5 worst free throw shooters in the league, you had 4 of them playing in that series. And it just, it was so, slowing down the game. I don't really think there's a fix for it. Do you think there's a way to fix that rule of, fouling? Everybody's going to find a loophole to avoid 2 shots in the ball.
Yeah, it's a part of the game. I mean, it's a part of the other team's strategy. You know, if your guy can't shoot free throws, you want to foul him and put him at the line. And you know, in a situation for the Houston Rockets with Dwight Howard and the Clippers with DeAndre Jordan, you know, your best player on defense and one of your best players on offense is not going to be able to be in a game at the end because you don't want him to get fouled. So I'm not exactly a fan of the hack a Shaq, but I'm not a fan of them eliminating the rule where you can foul a guy and send him to the line either. Now, if the guy doesn't have the ball and he's in the backcourt and you foul him, well, I think that's ridiculous. But as long as they're in a half-court situation and the offense is set and he gets fouled, I think that's fair game. But you know, guys, number one, guys got to work on trying to make them. I mean, you should at least, at the worst-case scenario, be able to make 50%. To be 30% is just outright ridiculous. But you know, that's the way it is. And as long as that guy's like that, you know, coach is going to gamble and say, hey, look, we got a better chance of winning, beating this team if we just foul this guy and send him to the line versus letting him try to get a basket.
As a, you know, when you were playing, basically the only, you know, it was magazines, newspapers, and a little bit of internet for criticism. So, I mean, you basically wouldn't have to pick up print media and you'd be okay. Now you have to deal with people tagging you on Twitter, Facebook, you know, 9,000 different blogs, probably putting a low number on that on blogs, but you can't just not open a newspaper. You know, what was criticism like, you know, back when you were playing? Did you just not read the newspaper, or did you read it, use it as motivation, or keep it in your pocket for a later date?
No, I think all athletes read the newspaper. I think they all read the press. When you hear a guy says, I don't pay attention to that, I think he's lying. You know, because when we play well, we want to feel good and read about it. And when you play bad, you don't want to read about it, but you can't help but see it. So, you know, the Sports Center back in my day was the place where, you know, you saw what everybody did, but they only showed the good highlights. They rarely showed the bad. It was the local media, the newspapers, whether it was the home team or the visiting team that kind of called a spade and said it how it was. But, you know, it's a part of the game. The thing I like about social media now is if you do something really well and you have a great game, I mean, it's out there. You know, when I played, I remember I had a great game against the Toronto Raptors when I played with the Houston Rockets, and I think Clyde Drexler might have had 6 points. Now, his 6 points were all dunks. But I'm waiting to watch SportsCenter because I'm like, wow, I had a great game. And I'm watching SportsCenter. They didn't show not one of my highlights. They showed all Clyde, you know, because he was a great player, and I guess that's who the people wanted to see. But nowadays, I don't care who you are. If you do something spectacular or something really good, you know, like you said, it's out there on social media. It's on Twitter. It's on Facebook. It's on Instagram. And you don't have to worry about opening up the newspaper. I don't know how many people even read the paper these days, because by the time you get the newspaper now, it's extremely old news.
No, I don't even read the newspaper. By the time you get it, it's, you know, the story's 15 hours old and everybody else has had an opinion on it. And, you know, who was the most, you know, as far as media goes, what city had a surprisingly rough group of media members? Like, you know, a group of bitter old reporters that you had to deal with once or twice a year?
You know, I was a reserve player, so I never really felt the brunt of the media stuff. But I think we all know there's no place worse than New York, and I'm not talking about for opposing teams. I'm even talking about for the Knicks or the Yankees or, you know, or the Mets or the Giants, whoever it is. I think New York is notorious for being the city. If you don't come with it and deliver like you're supposed to, they're gonna let you hear about it. And I think that's the most pressure cooked city to play any professional sport. I think is New York City, because you gotta come with your A game. I mean, the tickets are expensive. People are paying their money and they want to see a good product. But on the flip side, it's also one of the places where if you do show that you're highly skilled in the sport, the fans appreciate it, whether you're a visiting team member or not. So I would say New York, without a doubt, probably had the toughest reporters and the toughest critics, both press and television-wise.
Do you think Melo gets a bit of, you know, there's, you know, a lot of the print media doesn't give Melo a pass in New York, but a lot of the fans, bloggers, you know, internet people have given Melo, you know, kind of a pass on his career in New York. Do you feel it's fair to give him a pass, or do you think that he gets too much of a pass?
I don't think he has any help. You look at his team right now, and it's a joke. I mean, you got the young kid Porzingis, who I think is going to be pretty good. But other than that, Melo doesn't have any help. People complain that he shoot up all the balls, but to be honest with you, he doesn't have a choice. Who else is going to score? I mean, I think I love Carmelo's game, but I love him because I appreciate his gifts offensively. I mean, if you love guys that score, there's nothing he can't do. I mean, he can shoot the three, he can take you off the dribble, he can post you up, he has great footwork, he has the jab step, the up and under, the turnaround. I mean, the guy flat out does it all. And I just don't think he's been fortunate enough to have a supporting cast around him to get him over the hump, to make the playoffs and go for a deep run. So I'm a big Carmelo Anthony fan. And I think people that knock guys just because they don't win a championship, I think is ridiculous, because your greatness isn't, in my opinion, determined by how many championships you win. People always talk about Bill Russell. Oh, he's the greatest because he won all these championships. But, hell, he had the best team. He had the best players surrounding him. I mean, if you can find a player that was better than Wilt Chamberlain, show him to me. And Wilt didn't win that many championships. So sometimes guys just don't have the supporting cast, or things just don't work out for whatever reason. But I think Carmelo is one of the greatest players of all time, especially when you talk about offensively. Does he have a tendency to forget that he's playing with four other guys sometimes? Yeah, but Kobe did the same thing, and Michael did the same thing early in his career. And I think the reason they do it is because they know they're good and they know they can make the basket. I mean, Hakeem Olajuwon told me one time if I want a shot, let him know, he would pass it back out to me. And I was the point guard, and I just laughed, but he was the man, and he felt like he could score against two defenders. Hell, he felt like he could score against three defenders. And when you're that good and you have that kind of confidence, you're going to take some tough shots. But I think Carmelo doesn't get what he deserves as far as being a great player. I really think he's phenomenal, and if I had a team, I would love to have a guy like that on my team.
It's funny to me, like Jordan in the 90s, granted, there was a lot of teams he had to, good players he had to go through, whether it be Ewing, Barkley, Malone at Stockton, the list goes on and on. But, this day and age, it keeps getting slimmer. Like, you look at, Russell. Okay, 11 championships is unrealistic in this era. And then it's like, okay, I feel like measuring somebody's greatness against Jordan just due to rings is kind of unfair, because, getting 6 in this era, I think it's nearly impossible. I mean, Kobe, after Shaq left, it took his team to, getting Powell and then getting back on track. I mean, the Celtics, they had a great combo with Pierce, Garnett, and Ray Allen, and even Rondo at the end. They only got 1. I mean, looking at these teams, what do you think, the max these players can get right now? I feel like it's, 3 at the most, just because of free agency, and I feel like the NBA is far too deep to, win 6 titles in this era.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know about 3, because I look at a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder with Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant, and we all know that Kevin Durant is a free agent at the end of this year. So, you don't know if he's going to stay, if he's going to go. But if he stays, you just look at him with Russell Westbrook and Serge Ibaka and Steven Adams and Enes Kanter, and you go, wow, they just got a chance to run a table for a while. A lot like when LeBron went to Miami with Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade. I mean, you thought they could have really contended for a championship, 5, 6, 7 years in a row. But the problem is, whenever you have a team and guys develop and do a great job, they want to be compensated for it. And I think Golden State's about to face that this year. Harrison Barnes doesn't get a lot of credit, but I think he's a key part of their team. But he's going to want to get paid. He's looking at what Draymond Green got and saying, well, hell, I know I'm probably just as good as Draymond Green. But, you got a salary cap, and teams just can't afford to pay everybody. I mean, you look at the Oklahoma City Thunder, think about where they would be right now if they still had James Harden. I mean, I think it's a wrap. There's nobody beating them with the rest of the guys they got. With Harden, Durant, Westbrook, and Serge Ibaka, I think it's over. But, they couldn't afford to keep him, or they decided not to afford to keep him. I'm not really sure. So, I agree with you. 11 titles, we'll never see that again with Bill Russell and the Boston Celtics there. The playing field is just too even now. Guys are leaving, going to different places. Because at the end of the day, you got to remember, the fans get caught up into this is my team, but guys are trying to make a living. And if you can win a championship with the Lakers and make $500,000, or you can make $3 million over with the Golden State Warriors, well, you're gonna probably go to Golden State and not worry about the championship because you're trying to take care of your family. So I think all of those things play a part.
Do you, the whole Tristan Thompson thing, Cleveland, I don't blame the guy. If you can, make as much money as you can, for as long as you can. I mean, that's the whole, thing in life. But do the fans, just ripping on a player for wanting more money, if an organization's going to give it to you, why not ask for it? I mean, I don't understand the fans just acting like it's completely ridiculous for these players that, and it's not even the players asking for it, it's their agent, because their agent, knows the game. Do you find it funny when, fans call athletes greedy when if they were in the same circumstance they would do the same thing?
Yeah, it's ridiculous, but they just don't understand that it's a business. I think first and foremost, you got to be honest. Some of the fans, they don't really know what's going on. They love their team, they want their team to win, but it's a business. And as soon as you're not able to deliver for that team, they're going to move on and either cut you or trade you to somewhere else. They don't care if you got kids in the school or you're connected to the community or you love playing with Houston or Atlanta or Charlotte, whoever it is. They're trying to win ball games, and it's a business. So when a guy's looking to maximize the amount of money that he can make, it's a business decision. I mean, that's it, plain and simple. I don't think guys are greedy because the NBA is making a ton of money, and this new TV deal, the salary's about to even get more ridiculous. I mean, you look at guys like Draymond Green and Tristan Thompson. They're good players, but in my era, they were just average players. Now they're max contract guys. I'm just scratching my head going, you got to be kidding me. So if you compare a guy like Draymond Green, who's just a hustle guy in the 90s, that's it. If you can pay him $80 million, what do you think the owners are making? I mean, people got to stop and think about that, but they don't understand that aspect of it. And I don't blame the guys because as soon as you can't deliver like you used to, they're going to get rid of you. Look at the criticism Kobe Bryant is taking right now. It's unbelievable to me. This guy's one of the greatest players of all time and done it at a high level for 18 straight years. This is his 20th year. The last 2 years he's been injured, but what that guy has done, nobody else in the history of the game has done. And people are just turning on him, talking about, he needs to quit. And I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. He's phenomenal. I mean, with 2 serious injuries the last couple of years, and he's back out there playing, looking exactly the same physically. He's not limping. I mean, it's just, people just don't understand. So you got to take what you can get while you can get it and just let them say whatever they want and keep on smiling as you go to the bank, deposit no checks.
Yeah. Well, a couple more questions before I let you go. Looking at, post-lockout, Maury Stoudemire hasn't been the same since the lockout, this most recent lockout. Dirk had a slow get. He had a slow go after the lockout. What was it like after the lockout in '99? How tough was it for you to get going again? You guys played a 50-game season, didn't start till about January. What was it like for you and fellow NBA players during that lockout time, and how difficult was it to get back into the swing of things after it?
For me personally, it wasn't difficult because I'm a small guy. I'm 6'3". At the time, I was 6'3", 190 pounds, so I can go anywhere in America and get in the pickup game. And that's what I did. When the lockout was going on, I just was playing over at the University of Washington with the college kids. I would play at the Intramural Center. We would get together with some guys, and we would just play some pickup games. So I was able to stay in shape. But imagine being 7 foot, 275 pounds, trying to find a pickup game somewhere. There's nobody to play against. So I think that's what hurt most of the guys in the NBA. And I know on my team personally, when the lockout hit, I had just signed a deal with the Charlotte Hornets, and I lost 40% of my contract the first year. And we had 3 big guys that really got out of shape: Derek Coleman, Eldon Campbell, and Anthony Mason. So it hurt them because guys that size, I mean, where can they go if the team doesn't have an organized practice? Like, you don't organize something yourself with a group of guys, where can you go to get a run and stay in shape? I mean, it hurt Ben Baker. Ben Baker had just got picked up by the Sonics. He gained a bunch of weight over that offseason. Sean Kemp. That's when Sean Kemp's career really took a turn for the worse because he sat out and missed all that time and gained a lot of weight. So I think guys probably, 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", and under probably just went and played pickup games somewhere, with just whoever the decent players were in that particular city. But the big guys didn't have anywhere to go. If you didn't live in L.A., or Houston or Atlanta, Chicago, some of the big cities, New York, where you had a lot of NBA players living in the off season, it was just tough to find somewhere to work out and play against guys your size. And I think that's what hurt guys the most during that lockout year. So you talk about Dirk Nowitzki. I mean, Dirk's 7 foot. You talk about Amari Stoudemire, 6'10". So there's not anywhere for those guys to go. And I don't care how long you work out by yourself, it's not the same as playing against competition.
All right. It's interesting you brought up Vin Baker and Kemp, but yeah, I agree that lockout really ruined.
Oh, it killed him. Vin Baker was an absolute monster when I played against him when he was with the Milwaukee Bucks and I was with the Atlanta Hawks. We had no answer for him. If you put a big guy on him, he took him on the perimeter. If you put a smaller guy on him, he posted him up. He had a nice post game. He had a jump shot. He could handle the ball. He came to Seattle at lockout hit, and, man, he was just never the same after that.
Do you think we're heading for another lockout?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think the Players Association has a new president, Michelle Roberts. I think she's phenomenal. I think she's really smart. I think she's really gritty. I think she's going to fight for what's best for the players. The players aren't dummies. They see this $2.9 billion new TV deal, so they're going to want a bigger slice of that pie. And I think the owners are going to say, well, hey, we own the teams. We should be getting more money. So I definitely think there's going to be a lockout. I hope there isn't, but there's no way that it's avoidable because when it comes to money, there's going to always be a fight. There's no doubt about that. I would be surprised if there's not a lockout when this collective bargaining agreement expires.
Well, yeah, I think the good thing for the players is, guys like LeBron and Chris Paul have taken a genuine interest in being, involved in the Players Association. You look back at, like, the 99 bargaining, you had Ewing, you had good, superstar-type players on the board for NBA Players Association. During the last lockout, I mean, no offense to these guys, but they're like, Derek Fisher, Eton Thomas, not guys that, the fans can, really like, okay, I can back, these guys are, these are the best players and stuff like that. So I feel like the players have a lot more of a bargaining chip, against the owners because of the stature of the players that are going to be going after them this time. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think it's great that LeBron's, in support of it. I think it's great that Chris Paul is supportive of it. But you're just talking about two rare guys. I mean, you don't see guys like that. I mean, LeBron James is a socially conscious guy. When Trayvon Martin was killed, you see him with the hoodie on his head. When the guy was choked in New York, We Can't Breathe, you see him wearing those T-shirts. I mean, that's not common. I mean, Michael Jordan never did that. Magic Johnson never did that. Dr. J never did that. I mean, Kareem did it. Muhammad Ali did it. But LeBron James is a different breed, and Chris Paul is about as sharp as you can get. So in that particular instance, I think they will help because they're two superstars that get it. But a lot of times, just because a guy is a great player and has a big name, that's not going to make him a great leader. So, when you talk about Derek Fisher and Eton Thomas and some of the smaller guys that was on the committee the last time, I mean, I think those guys are really concerned. And a lot of times, that's the guys that are paying attention to what's going on and that understand what's going on. When you're a superstar with a max contract, well, it doesn't matter what kind of agreement you get. You're going to get your money. But what about the smaller guys? So a lot of times it's about looking out for the smaller guys. I know when I played and we had a lockout, the whole thing was based on, we want to try to take care of the veterans, so we're going to guarantee the veterans X amount of money for the years they played. And what that deal ended up doing was it just got the veterans completely out of the league because the team said, okay, well, I don't want to pay Eldridge Recasner $1 million a year because he's played 10 years in the league when I can play this kid $275,000 to do the same thing. So it kind of pushed a lot of guys out. So a lot of times, the superstar guys don't really have a clue to what the average guy is going through because it's a completely different situation. But I will agree with you. I like Chris Paul and LeBron James being involved because I think they're two guys that get it, like you said, they have a presence out there, and everybody knows who they are. So I hope everything goes well for those guys this year, because the lockout is no fun.
Well, last thing before I let you go, do you want to tell everybody where we can find you on Twitter, the internet, any endeavors you have going on?
Yeah, my Twitter handle is Recasner. It's also my handle on Instagram, which I'm not on a whole lot, but I'm trying to get a little bit more familiar with it. And, I run a basketball academy. My website is www.eldridgerecasner.com. So that's about it for me.
All right, awesome.
You can catch the Bob Sullivan Show every Sunday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time at latenightsportsradio.com.